All right, let's go. Welcome to eCom Reality episode 40, where we talk all things e-commerce, Shopify, Facebook ads, Google ads, email marketing. And in this one, we will talk specifically about e-commerce because e-commerce is an industry that's tough. I will admit it because this is where I do most of my work in e-commerce, where people buy things online, physical things, right? Like let's say a protein bar, or we can even think of headphones and other technology, right? But we're not talking about Apple, we're not talking about the big giants, right? We're talking about smaller brands, smaller businesses that might make 100K a month, not 100K a second, like Apple, for example. They probably make even more than that. And we're talking about a very competitive landscape, especially nowadays, because you can think of dropshippers, right? You could actually argue that dropshipping is easier than SMMA, than actually offering a service, right? Because, for example, this is more or less what I'm doing. I am working with brands, so I'm like a service provider. And why would this actually be, let's say, harder? Well, because, for example, I can't do it all alone because I'm not necessarily like just a freelancer anymore. Like I actually have a team. I actually have to lead. I actually have to motivate. I actually have to create processes. I also have to do part of the work. I also have to recruit. So doing so many things, right? As a business owner. But on the ecom side, it's more or less the same. You have to do a bunch of things. The main difference is that you can pretty much do it all alone in most cases. Because, for example, the process on the ecom side, and this is how almost everyone starts, they test a product in some way or another, and you also need a lot of knowledge there. So not taking anything away from the ecom guys, right? But you don't have to show your face, and you don't have to sell, you don't have to prospect, right? It's a different game. Not saying it's necessarily easy, but let's say easier to grow faster to some extent. That's why in most cases you won't see the ecom guys that much. And actually same with affiliates. And I just got distracted by a Slack notification, but it's the same with affiliates. Do you ever see their face? No. They just stay in front of their computer and press buttons and they print money for sure, right? But only the best. While, for example, on the ecom side, you can see all around there are a bunch of brands out there, right? Because almost everyone offers something different. For example, with a protein bar, you can offer a protein bar that helps you lose weight by having lower calories. You can actually have a protein bar that has more calories because you want to gain weight. And it could also have more carbohydrates. It could also have caffeine. So many things that you can actually ingest, and all of them will do a different thing. So coming back to the main subject of today, e-commerce is growing and it will always grow. And it's also because of what I mentioned. It's not necessarily that hard to have new people starting e-commerce brands, or better said, drop shipping brands maybe in the beginning. And then after making some cash flow, they can actually scale and have a branded, let's say, drop shipping, and then like a real brand basically, where you actually put more effort into it. And then same with the service providers, with the agencies, because there are so many agencies. Right now, you can find an agency for content, for social media, for Facebook ads, Google ads, for email marketing, for so many services, right? So that means that sometimes when someone wants to start an e-commerce brand, they will actually need some help at some point, right? And that's actually a win-win situation, because you have the service provider who actually is good at what they are doing. Ideally, they are good at what they are doing. And then you have the e-commerce brand owner who also has a lot on their plate, like focusing on cost per click in Facebook ads. It's not the main thing they should be focusing on. It's product, its offer, it's so many other things. Because, for example, if you're trying to promote a product, you won't have an easy time, a good time, if it's a shitty product, if the website isn't there. So many things that aren't in your favor. That's why you actually always need partners and so on, right? Like, I'm actually someone who is introverted, right? And if possible, I mean, I could stay all day, all week, a month in another country with no friends, just be by myself and be all good, right? I don't have any problem. But at the same time, I'm aware in business, it's a multiplayer game. You can't win if you're just like trying to do things alone, because you're still limited by time. Yeah, we have AI and all of that, but still, think of it like this. You probably don't know how to use AI for every single thing. So you'll also or either have to pay for a coach, for different tools, and usually you don't learn those tools yourself, right? Because I mean, you either have time or money. If you have time, it means that you're kind of just starting out, you don't really have much capital, right? But over time, you do get some capital. If you have some success with your agency, with your eCom brand, then you'll get some capital and then you have to reinvest it, right? That's how you grow. Because, for example, even myself, I do hire, except having a team for my agency, I've also hired, let's say, a video editor, which is more so for the content side, and the content side doesn't really bring any revenue. For example, not right now, I'm not using any video editor because this is very raw. But for Instagram, for example, I have, if you watch some of those reels, edited reels that might help or might not help, but usually when you create content, there's like a long game, right? And coming back to the main subject, because that's what I want us to focus on. E-commerce growing, because e-commerce is tied to the economy. If the economy is growing, if people are having more success, more money, more of everything, right? There's an abundance. So when you have abundance, you'll have more capital, people being just way more positive in general. And there is something to it, right? Because you also need the mindset, but you also need the capital. Like you can't have one and not have the other. Meaning that if you have capital, but if you don't have the mindset, for example, let's look at Europe. It has enough, I would say, capital, but it doesn't have the mindset. So you don't have too many businesses as much as in the US. But then in the US, if you look right now, there's a lot of great people. The mindset is, I would say, probably at like the highest level, because so many people, or at least in the past, not so much maybe today, some of the best people in the world in terms of like being hungry for success moved to the US, right? And there was also capital. Right now, there is slightly less because of the economy, but it doesn't mean that you can't make it work. You can make it work because, for example, if there are less people who are competing at one point, it means there's more opportunity for new brands to come in, right? For example, right now, it's very hard, from what I know, to create like a consumable beverage brand, protein bar, for example, right? It's harder because there's less capital and you already have some players in the market, right? So there are some times when you might have an easier time, but that doesn't mean that you should always wait, because you can still concept things. I mean, right now we have Monster Energy drink, we have Celsius, we have Red Bull, like we have 3 big players, right? But does that mean that there's not room for any other new brand out there? Of course there is. Of course there is. Like, you could get a market for, let's say, gamers or for entrepreneurs, right? Because if you look at Monster, they go more so after people who like the gym, right? And for example, I like Monster, I like the gym, so I kind of relate. But there's not an energy drink where maybe there's some kind of, I would say, Venn diagram between, think of anything, but let's say a coffee lover and then entrepreneur, right? If you have a Venn diagram for that, you might make energy drink for like creatives, for entrepreneurs who also like coffee or who like success, something like that, right? Monster, for example, isn't necessarily tied to success. Same with Red Bull. What do they portray? They portray, let's say, some kind of coolness to it, like the the motorsports, the extreme sports, being bold and so on, right? And then Celsius, honestly, I'm not sure because I don't really have it around me right now, like in Romania. So who knows how popular it is worldwide. Those two are the bigger players, and whoever enters now, they will have a hard time, right? It takes time. It takes time, but that's why there's an opportunity, because not everyone will enter a market where it will take time. That's why ideally you do try to play games where you know you'll be in it for the long run. That's why I'm creating content. I know I can show my face and I'll care about myself being here, right? Because my name won't change, my face won't change most likely. So I am investing in something that I know will be here in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. Just need to be healthy. Otherwise, like, I'll be here. Well, for example, with a business, with Facebook ads, for example, and skills like this, yeah, you learn it and so on, but it's like, will Facebook ads be around in 20 years? Who knows? So that's why ideally you focus more so on learning skills and looking at the economy right now, coming always back to the main subject. Ecom will grow basically because people are growing, creativity is growing, innovation is happening, things will become cheaper, easier as always. Because if you look back, let's look at phones. A good phone was very expensive 20 years ago, let's say, right? Meaning that in terms of, if you compare the quality of what we have now and the price, if you try to have the same quality as we have today 20 years ago, first of all, it wouldn't be possible. 10 years ago, it might have been very expensive, because think of it like this. The phones are so good right now because someone had to invest millions, billions of dollars, Apple and all of these companies, to create a technology that can be mass produced. And this is what happens over time. It costs a lot in the beginning, just like with, let's say, getting your genome diagnosed, right? Like scanned. I think it was a few $1,000,000 back in 2004, let's say, as an example. And then it went down, and I think now you can maybe have it for a few thousand, maybe even less. So the cost does go down. It goes down over time. And I think this is called Moore's Law, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. Can't remember the exact name because there are so many laws out there. But in conclusion, so we can wrap up this video, ecom will always grow. So it's definitely a good market to be in, but you have to be one of the best or among the best, right? Or try to become the best, because there's always going to be this top 10, top 1% in anything, right? And if you want to feel good about yourself, about the people you work with and so on, if you are doing a good job, you will feel proud of yourself and also proud of what you're doing, and also about everyone around you. So it's a win-win-win situation. All of the wins that you can think of. So that's it for this one. So if you're in ecom, I know it's not the easiest industry, but after all, nothing is necessarily easy. But it does get easier because you know more. And that's why, for example, I'm a big fan of sticking with something, be it relationships, real life, work, basically investing in your personal brand, investing in your agency, investing in your ecom brand. Usually it pays off because you learn more and you just get better at that one specific thing, and you can actually pour more into it. So I would say that's it for this one. If you haven't watched any of the other videos, recent episodes, or the ones that might have come after this one, if you're watching later, then I suggest you can listen to them if you have the time and energy for that. And until next time, peace out.